in 3 dimensions got me bent and got me twisted. I know I done said a lot, but I should probably stop pretending. I don't really hold the key and I can't really push a button. I just step up to the mic and try my very best to bust it, but I ran out of breath. It's tight in my chest, my feet just might fail. I can't stand up.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Racially Speaking. It's me, David Phipps, your host, and happy 2026. Look, before we jump in, as always, please like, share, and subscribe to the show wherever you're listening right now, whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever else you get your podcasts or are watching. This is a easy, quick, free way to support this show and the work that I do on this show. And it is work, and I really appreciate everyone that likes, shares, and subscribes to the show. If you haven't done that, please would you take just 2 seconds to do that for me right now? It really does help me out, helps the word get out about the show, and helps support the show. Of course, if you would like it to take it one step further, you can visit patreon.com/racially speaking right now. For as little as $1, $3, or $5 a month, you can financially support the show. And in return, 1, support the show, but 2, get free bonus content and engagement by yours truly. Shout out to the real OGs, the patrons that have been with me since I launched the Patreon. Full confession, I've not kept up as much as I would like to. In 2026, I'm not a big New Year's resolutions guy, but I am vowing on here, it's recording, it's going to be out on the interwebs, to do much better with putting bonus content on there for just you guys. Either way, please and thank you so much for everyone that is going to sign up and that already has been on there for any amount of time. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. All right, that is enough of that. Look, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that I think it's been both too long and not long enough since I've done an episode here on the podcast. Of course, what I mean by that, it has quite literally been too long. It's been about a couple months now, and I'd do this every day if I could swing it, if I had the time. I love engaging with you guys. I love talking about the things that I'm talking about. Through the lens of I think it is helpful and the right thing to do. Of course, I don't like talking about things that, especially I'm going to talk about today, that for the reasons that we often have to talk about things. But hopefully you guys, if you've listened for any amount of time, you understand what I mean by the nuance and multi-layers of that question or declaration. But also it's not been long enough since being on here on this podcast, because of course it has not been long enough, as it never is, since something traumatic and racially charged has happened. At the time of recording this, it is February 1st. So we are a month in to 2026. And I saw a tweet or a thread earlier today or earlier this week that I think is so true, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but it said something to the fact of it's only been 4 months of 2026 so far, and it's only February. I think that's so true about the nature of the topics and conversations we have here on the podcast. Let me be honest with you guys first. Regularly think about and have strongly considered multiple times, even right up to the end of 2025, strongly consider changing the name of the podcast, going in a different direction, not because I don't think it's necessary or that what I talk about on here has been compromised or we've made huge strides, or that's made some kind of huge difference, or that it's not worth talking about, but just that I want to make it more accessible. Sometimes I fight the belief that people hear something like, oh, it's a race podcast. I'm tired of it. I'm not listening to that. While I know all that is true, absolutely is true. It's definitely happening. I struggle, and I've always struggled from the beginning of this podcast and in my personal life with making things palatable and making things accessible. I don't like dumbing things down to convince people to listen. but I'm trying to be more cognizant of being okay with making things more accessible to people that really do want to learn, but maybe don't know if they're welcome in certain conversations or how to access certain conversations, for better and for worse. So, with that said, given where we're at and where we've been headed so far in 2026, especially, I've of course opted to, for some logistical reasons, sure, but largely have felt the call to keep this going, to definitely not change the name, because it's too important. The reason I started this podcast is exactly, if not more, the reason I want to keep going 6 years later. It's either 6 or 7. Oh man, 6, 7. 6 or 7 years. I don't remember how long I've been doing it. 6 or 7 years this January that I started this podcast. It was either 2019 or 2020. And I know I need to keep it. I know it's not the time to stop focusing on the racial element or to making that really apparent from the beginning that that's what this is about. Because, guys, in my wildest dreams, I didn't think in 2026 we would be at a point where racial profiling was signed off on by the Supreme Court. I didn't think we'd be living in a time where it really does seem like there are actual residuals, not the right word, but resemblances of stuff like a Nazi regime targeting people for what they look like, how they speak, where they live, and arresting, and of course, as I'm recording this in the last couple of weeks, killing people for exercising their actual rights, and arresting, ripping families apart, imprisoning people in all kinds of illegal and heinous ways in our country by permission and as it's been legislated by high government officials in this current administration. I'm not going to relitigate all of the big stories. Condolences, of course, to Renee Good and her family, Alex Preddy, his family, many other people that have already been killed or lives have been changed because of the trauma of ICE agents in the streets of many cities right now, all over our country. I'm not going to relitigate the stories that many of you have already been following, but I wanted to come on here, and I definitely couldn't come on here and not address the big picture here. Want to come on here and give you, of course, my thoughts of where we're at as people. I'm a quasi expert. I'm a fake expert, fake activist here on my podcast. I'd say I wanted to give you some quasi expertise and then just a human view, of course, through the lenses of my goals and heart for racial justice, through the lenses of my Christian faith, largely, in a way that I hope that is accessible to any and everybody, really, whether you're Christian or not. I'd say regardless of what you think politically, but of course, many people, will accuse me of being too political, a leftist, and I've been called everything, whatever. I want to keep speaking up for what's right, and I want people to feel seen, knowing that there are people like me, not to give myself a pat on the back, but I'm going to keep standing in the gap between, I was telling this to somebody else recently who was sharing just some real difficulty they're going through within their own family with navigating politics. But I'm going to keep standing in the gap that there is, in my opinion, between what I believe are very Christian beliefs: love your neighbor, love others, love God, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, is of course the great commandment in Scripture. And the gap between that Christian belief and how, broadly speaking, many professing Christians exemplify that way worse than many, in my experience, non-Christians. there's too many non-Christian circles that are understanding basic greatest commandment and living it out in much better ways, in much more biblical, loving, compassionate ways than professing Christians, especially professing Christians with power. And I want to speak into that and speak against that. I think it's a crying shame. And I think, y'all, Christians, it's hurting our witness. And I think we have to be more okay with taking our lumps on the chin. That doesn't mean be self-deprecating, say, oh, we're the worst, and self-hate, hate ourselves, hate our brothers and sisters in Christ. I think it just means to be humble and be willing to apologize and own what we are being associated with sometimes. Maybe sometimes even when it's not fair. Not all the time when it's not fair, but maybe even sometimes when it's not fair. I think this is very much what it means when Scripture says, turn the other cheek. I don't think it's always what it means, but I think this is what it means of just hands up. Hey, yes, like I am sorry that Christians have enacted so many things the wrong way to oppress people historically and currently. I think things would be a lot better if more Christians could have this perspective, compassion, dare I say empathy, which a lot of people are even attacking. I am hopeful that more people can and will have more more compassion moving forward as things have gotten so much worse. But at what cost? Again, I've said this a lot on social media, but it always comes with a cost, and so often it's actual life, it's actual death for people to wake up. Now, I'm not going to pretend that we should just overcompensate and always overreact, overanalyze. Not going to pretend that we should act like we always know the future. But I will say, I think we need to stop acting shocked when certain things happen. Doesn't mean we act unemotional, that we don't have shock in that way, because I don't think it's not good for us that we become numb to things, especially trauma. But we have to stop acting surprised as if people haven't been saying things are going to happen because we've been told they're going to happen, been shown that they are going to happen, and then they do. And it's never too late to do the right thing. It's always the right time to do the right thing, like Dr. King says, or said. But I think it's okay to acknowledge that it is too late sometimes. Like it's too late when somebody dies, right? It's not too late to do the right thing after that, but it's too late to undo someone dying, right? I always say these justice conversations I have on here are about life and death, and I really mean it. I'm not trying to be morbid or down in the dumps about anything or dramatic. I just see it. It always aligns with life and death issues. These aren't just lighthearted political things. They're costing people their lives. Excuse me. So what I want to do is just get a little bit of assessment on where I see some hypocrisy that I think I'm hoping is helpful to point out. And I could, of course, go on for far too long, so I'm going to try and keep this at a tight half hour. One that comes to mind, as I mentioned when I started this podcast, right? Around the time when everything was heated during COVID, go to witness the killing of George Floyd, as a country and the world witnessed the killing of George Floyd at the hands of police in Minneapolis. If you haven't made that connection, same place that Renee Good, same place Alex Preddy were just shot and killed by ICE agents. in the street over these last couple weeks. I want to say this. If I think back to all of the discourse around police reform when George Floyd was killed, when Breonna Taylor was killed, when Ahmaud Arbery was killed, when Philando Castile was killed, Eric Garner, maybe all the way back to guys like Mike Brown, Elijah McClain, all these. Some well-meaning people, but then, of course, many non-well-meaning people in my opinion. But let's just say the even well-meaning people, back then, would always bring up this: oh, the police just need better training, right? It's a training issue. It's not a racial issue. I just want to speak into that because I never believed that was the whole issue. But here's what I want to point out: why I really don't believe it was ever the issue, and I don't think you guys should either. To say that it's just a training issue, that black and brown people, particularly black people, are killed at a much higher rate when they have historically been a much smaller percentage of the population at the hands of police, and that those numbers, the police killings, have only gone up since George Floyd's death, and that is just a training issue. I gotta heart check you guys, and anyone that says that it's just a heart issue and that we need better accountability, better training. We don't need to get rid of qualified immunity. We don't need to change the funding, defund the police. And just so you guys know, defunding the police doesn't mean, to most people who are saying that, we don't need any police. We mean we need to reallocate how much money they're getting. This isn't the time I'm going to relitigate all that right now. But let me say this: if it was just a training issue, I'm going to paint with broad strokes for a second. The same people that were and have always maintained the it's just a training issue narrative and discourse are the same people that are supporting these ICE agents getting that get their jobs as ICE agents with the smallest amount of training possible. They're signing up and getting handed, I don't know if they get a badge or their gear, and getting licensed to parade around the streets, target black and brown people, target people that have accents, and separating them from their families, their teachers, taking them from their jobs, sending them to countries they've never even been to or heard of. Kids are skipping school to stay home. They're hiding. They're literally hiding in their homes. There's groups that are starting that are keeping watch to protect people from getting scooped up by ICE. Literal kidnappings, literal people being shot in the streets, people being wrongly imprisoned and dying in the hands of ICE agents. It can't be. You can't have it both ways. It can't be, oh, they just needed more training, and then yes, let's escalate making people and allowing people to be ICE agents and carrying around AK-47s with minimal training and $50,000 bonuses. You can't have it both ways. You cannot have it both ways. I have much more to say about what is wrong with the whole process, but I've got to point out the inconsistencies that are just unacceptable if you are truly engaged with what is going on. Next thing I'll say is, especially Christians who care about justice, we have to be willing to do the work. I talk to too many people that say they don't read. That's okay. It's okay if you don't read. But then if I say, well, watch a documentary, read an article, maybe not a whole book, check out a podcast. I rarely recommend my own podcast. I listen to many other podcasts. Watch a movie. Talk to somebody. I never said it would just be easy. I think some of those things are pretty easy to do, but I never said it'd be easy. I don't think it should be. It's going to take sacrifice. It's going to take time. And just pick one of those things. The bar can be very low. Stay informed. If you don't want to be on social media, I get it. Don't be on social media. But you got to stay informed. You got to replace it with something. Okay? You got to replace it with something. You can't have it both ways. You can't say you don't know what to do and not take the inundation of information in some way that is readily at your hands to stay informed in some way. You got to stay engaged with something, with what's going on, in order to know how to act. That's all I'll say. Caveat: take care of yourself. Take breaks. That's fine. Take breaks. Just don't have those breaks be indefinite. We got to stay engaged. But all right, I'm getting sidetracked. Christians, we got to be aware of our public witness and how we are painting with broad strokes and painting ourselves with broad strokes, and where we're drawing lines in the sand. And I'm talking to myself too. Two very common Christian principles in the Gospels are, yes, to the first commandment, love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And secondly, love your neighbor. That's what Jesus says are the two most important things to do. When in doubt, do those two things. If, in fact, he kind of goes on to say, if you're doing any of the other things but aren't doing those two things, it kind of doesn't matter, because ultimately you need to be loving the Lord and loving others. And as Christians, our allegiance is to that thing, right? To those two principles, loving others, loving God. Let's even just talk about loving others right now. Loving others. For my views and assessment of what's going on, and I think it's fair to say everyone's going to do this a little bit differently. But again, to paint with broad strokes, y'all are probably tired of me saying that, but I think I have to sometimes to make points. We are getting that wrong. I think we are erring too much sloppily on the side of, well, I don't know what it looks like to, or okay, it says to love others, so I'm going to pick who I love, and just my allegiance is going to go all into that basket. Well, the problem with that is the Lord also says, Jesus also says, love your enemies, right? And I think those two go hand in hand. If we're picking and choosing, and again, I'm guilty of it. I pick and choose. We all do it. But I think we miss the heart of what it looks like to love our neighbors. Loving our neighbors are not going to be the people that are easy to love, right? They're not the people that are easy to love. They're the people that are most difficult to love. And over again, we see Jesus talk about that balance. The story of the Good Samaritan is all about that, right? When Jesus talks about the great commandment, loving God, loving others, he knows that the person asking the question, it's going to be really hard for that person to hear him give this answer. So it's supposed to be hard. And what I see us doing, especially in times of injustice, often racial injustice, is we're erring on the side of, I'm going to love the people that I see being attacked and marginalized, that I want to care for. Okay, see the difference here? Notice what I said, that I want to care for. This is why. And then it turns into a big gaslighting competition. That's where things like Black Lives Matter happens, and then All Lives Matter happens, right? Oh, well, what about me? Right? That's where I think this whole attack on DEI has come from. Oh, wait, we're going to give more equity to Black and brown people, queer people, women. Whoa, what about, why do we hate white men now? No. That was never the goal. It's equality, right? Inclusion. It's giving opportunity to everybody that have not been given equal opportunity and access. Like, yes, often white people, almost always white men. That's just facts. If you don't believe that's been historically true, I don't know if I can meet you where you're at right now. That's where all this is coming from. And so what happens, George Floyd is killed. We want police reform. then people say, what about police though? Some police die. What about blue lives? One, blue lives isn't a thing. It's a uniform, and no one said, not no one, but the whole point of a Black Lives Matter or movement, something like that, a civil rights movement, dare I say, isn't, hey, this is an we hate white people, we hate police. It's no, we're tired of getting beaten and murdered and disenfranchised by people in power, whoever that might be. And so another thing I keep seeing, which many of you might have been keeping up with, but I think a lot of people, this might go under the radar, is when these injustices happen, when a Derek Chauvin kills George Floyd, right? When a Kyle Rittenhouse shows up with an AK-47 at a protest and shoots three actually, maybe it was two people. When a Shiloh Hendricks calls a little boy the N-word on a playground, when Daniel Penny chokes out a young Black man on a subway, when I forget the officer's name is escaping, when the ICE officer shoots Renee Good, right, in Minneapolis. Actually, I'm gonna look up his name because I don't want to forget his name. Can't find it, can't remember it. When the officer, kills Renee Good in Minneapolis, when officer kills Alex Preddy in Minneapolis, these GoFundMe pages are started immediately to provide for them. Now, again, don't turn me off yet. Do I think these people deserve condemnation to the point they're not a human being anymore? We should throw them out on the streets, homeless, or in prison for us? I don't know. It's no. Do I think they are not worthy of any kind of forgiveness, anything moving forward? Absolutely not. I think they should be tried under the law, and these are all obviously case by case. And justice, I'm doing air quotes, should be served. But that's it. In all these cases, they've committed pretty big crimes, right? Pretty big crimes. My observation is that so often the overwhelming response by Christians is, man, I gotta watch out for these people, the offenders. I'm gonna raise millions for Kyle Rittenhouse. I'm gonna throw a parade for Kyle Rittenhouse. I'm gonna write good character recommendations for a Derek Chauvin or Daniel Penny, right? Shiloh Hendricks, who called a little boy the N-word over and over again on the playground. People are bullying her now. I'm gonna give her money so that she can buy $1 million house, right? That knee-jerk reaction, I think, is a implication of, maybe implication is the wrong word, indicative of a lot of Christian community and the Christian heart towards how to enter into things when politics and racial injustice collide with an accurate understanding and humble understanding of what is actually going on. We err on the side of, this is too uncomfortable, or I don't know what happened. I don't want to know what happened, but I see that people are raking this person through the mud. That seems bad, so I'm going to give money to it and keep it moving. Rather than seeing, why didn't you look to see, how can I help the family of this kid who just got called the N-word by an adult in public on a playground? How can I help the daughter and family? How can I even find out anything about the daughter and family of George Floyd, who his daughter just publicly lost her father in the most public way ever, in front of the whole world, and will never not be able to come out from under that narrative in her for her whole life. How can I help her? How can I come alongside her and that family? At the very least, how can I come alongside both? No, statistically, overwhelmingly, the Christian response is, well, I'm going to err on the side of, lack of a better term, the oppressor or the offender. Again, to each their own. Help who you feel like you're called to help, but I truly think that there is something, a blind spot in too many of us Christians where we don't want to enter into what it'll take to be uncomfortable to speak up for the oppressed in a lot of these stories and narratives. Instead, we want to take the easy way out and support the political tie that we have as a religion and often organization to these things, and we quite frankly lack courage in a lot of these moments, and that's where we continue not to meet the moment where I think it deserves to be met. I'm not going to read all the numbers I have written down that I've followed, but I did want to say this. An example is Erica Kirk. One thing I'll say, I haven't really said anything really about her on the podcast, but Erica Kirk, the late widow of Charlie Kirk, who was murdered in a terrible, heinous way, awful, has around 9 to 10 and counting millions of dollars raised on GoFundMe by many other people, not just her. And it's still just publicly open, all these different GoFundMe accounts that are, continue. I mean, that's tons of money, right? $9-10 million. I don't think she's got kids. She's a widow now. Wasn't really working or expected to work. If you know anything about Charlie Kirk, was very much in the background, stayed at home. But is now kind of making her tours and giving all these talks, and is very public as a very public figure now. She needs money to raise her kids. She deserves it as a mother who lost her husband to gun violence. 1000% deserves money. But I don't do like a comparison for a second of just all these GoFundMes raising $9, 10 to $12 million and counting, are just open indefinitely for her. Are being heavily supported and touted by Christians. But if you were to look at, there's just one comparison. I'm not going to belabor this and do comparison to all these, but if you were following the GoFundMe that was set up for the widow of Renee Good a few weeks ago, I think it reached about 50,000. Check my work, 50,000, and I think it got to a point very quickly where it exceeded. Maybe it reached $1 million. I don't think it reached that high. Let's say it reached 1 million. They promptly closed it, wrote a letter thanking everybody for giving, immediately closed it and said, "Thank you. This has exceeded any goals we ever would have thought. Please direct all your giving to other people in need." Boom, right away. I only bring that up not to stir the pot and say, "See, look, this I'm right. These people are right. Left versus right," or anything. I'm talking about a heart issue. Okay, I'm talking about a heart issue of how somebody in the moment met the moment with absolute compassion in a very private way. It was just a message on GoFundMe. It wasn't on the stage. Forgiving somebody, which I think can be powerful too. There's just something that sticks out about some of these things of how, broadly speaking, Christians are erring on the side of dealing with these injustices. And I think unless there's a big shift, this is going to keep happening. These things are going to keep happening. That's in my opinion. In my opinion, I'm right, obviously, because of what's going on right now. One more thing on GoFundMe. There's GoFundMe, and there's also this other thing called Give, Send, Go, which is an alternative to GoFundMe, started largely by conservative evangelical, a conservative evangelical movement, largely in response to GoFundMe not supporting the politics of a lot of these GoFundMes that have been started for these people. But all the literature and copy of why Give, Send, Go is created is really because it wants to, the wording, I don't have it pulled up, is to, under the name of God and Christianity, kind of be there to help serve people in need. I'll just be honest, largely it's just in response to some of these GoFundMes, like a Kyle Rittenhouse or Shiloh Hendricks, for example. GoFundMe's crossing the bylaws of GoFundMe and being cut off. So they, again, literally from a Christians, broadly speaking, organization, Christian conservative organization saying, hey, they won't take you. Hey, come on, we'll take you. Like, we're in this with you. There's just something icky about that, you guys. There's just something, there just is. There's something icky about that. It is not I don't think it's a dehumanizing thing to say that. I think there's just something a fundamental blind spot in a lot of us in Christian justice circles that are not possessing the wherewithal, or at least acting like we don't have it, to understand why there's some disingenuousness there. All right. It's been my 36 minutes. I told you guys I'd keep it a tight half hour. I apologize. Thank you for jumping on here and hearing me out. I get pretty raw on these individual episodes. Hopefully this has been helpful, and I'm going to try get on here a little bit more as more stuff comes out, and as I try to engage with this stuff personally, and then for you guys that value anything I had to say on here. Again, please consider joining the Patreon, patreon.com/racially speaking. For as little as $1 a month, you can support the show and the labor that does go into this show. I appreciate all of the patrons that have already signed up, that are already on there, that I get to engage with. Of course, I love everyone that shows support and listens here at all. Please reach out, social media, text, email. I'm an open book. I love going deeper with these things in my free time when I do have it. So please don't hesitate to reach out one way or the other about anything I've said here on the podcast. I don't try and hide. Please like, share, and subscribe to the show. Peace.
Life in 3 dimensions got me bent and got me twisted. I know I done said a lot, but I should probably stop pretending. I don't really hold the key and I can't really push a button. I just step up to the mic and try my very best to bust it, but I ran out of breath. It's tight in my chest, my feet just might fail. I can't stand up pressure. The nightmare might scare you, no worse than reality. They hunt you by day, R.I.P. my robbery. Everybody got a time, but that's less than comforting. I hope I'm alive by the time they choose to comfort me. Mosquitoes in the vein, or leeches on my soul. This money on my mind is a fracture in my bones. You get crippled by continuing existence like a ghost. And they wonder why we drink, and they wonder why we smoke, and they wonder why we think that everything's a joke. I'm shocked that we can sleep, must be the thought of letting go. Now I lay me down to sleep, I'm fed up with the valley. Now I lay me down to sleep, I'm fed up with the valley. Now I lay me down to sleep, I'm